This is the Powered Up Podcast, show 106.
Welcome to a real-world education with insight and advice from teachers in the game, where current and former educators reveal what truly sets apart the great teachers and what it takes to make a positive impact on students. Whether you're in pre-service learning, new to the game, or a seasoned veteran, this is the show for you. You'll leave feeling inspired to take action because we are powering education by empowering you.
Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Ken Erman, host of the Powered Up Podcast, and I'm here with my co-host, Mr. Matt, the game show host, Rogers. Matt, no guest tonight. We had to pivot a little bit. Our guest had some personal obligations that came up at the last minute. So you and I sat here for a while, just talking probably a lot about everything useless. We did some summer planning for the podcast. And we also started to talk about what do we want to do tonight. And we talked about some different ideas, but I think we came up with something fun here that we're going to go with. So sorry, I didn't even let you say hi. So why don't you say hi to everybody?
Hey, everyone. I guess I'll leave it there and let Ken dominate. No, I think the whole goal of this is, if you've stuck it out for 105 other episodes, hopefully you've not listened to all of them unless you're Ken's wife. Then all in all, thank you for being there, supporting us. We thought it'd be kind of fun to get some snapshot answers to some, random questions that we hear as teachers frequently, or maybe not nearly enough, to kind of get to know Ken or myself a little bit better. So
we're going to call this our rapid fire segment here. So Matt and I both wrote down questions. I don't know what Matt wrote. Matt does not know what I wrote, but we wanted to be prepared with questions. So he's going to ask me a question, I'll answer, and then he will offer an answer to his own, and vice versa. So Matt, I'll give you the honors. You can ask our first rapid fire question.
All right. My first one is, I happen to be very much this way. Do you have any school superstitions?
School superstitions. I would say no. I don't have any school superstitions, but I did have some items that remained in my classroom until the day I left. I had this like cloth dinosaur that a kid made during early care or before care, and gave it to me, and somehow we had a name. I want to say dinosaur's name was Amy, and I pinned it to my board, like above the tack strip that's above the whiteboard, and it never moved my entire career in that classroom until I left. And I think I gave it to a student, or maybe I have it, honestly, maybe I have it packed away. I have a couple of boxes of teacher desk stuff that I haven't opened in a while. So I don't know if I would consider that a superstition, but I had a few of items like that just became a permanent part of the classroom.
So I got three that I can think of right off the bat. So first off, I hate wearing shoes as much as humanly possible. Ken will tell you, when I see him over the summers, I practically never wear shoes unless it will physically be a harm to me. So with a last name of Rogers, I walk into school in my flip-flops. I changed some things. I used to leave a black pair and a brown pair of dress shoes at my desk. I'd bring a pair of socks, and I would put shoes on in front of the kids during our morning meeting. I also had, cardigans that for a very short time, I would switch the cardigan for which subject I was teaching. The main one that I can think of is my mom, when I first graduated and went into the classroom, got me my name badge.
Yeah, I know this one that you're going to say.
Right. So it's the name badge that I have out on my desk. And what's funny is, if you make it to my desk, you probably know that you're in Mr. Rogers' classroom. Either I've been yelling at you because I'm loud, or, you came in for a purpose. but it is always the first item that I put out on my desk at the very beginning of the school year. I cannot unpack anything else. I can't take supplies from the office. I can't, I will take papers and put them away before I put that ID or that kind of name badge out on my desk. And it is absolutely the last thing that I, put away at the end of the school year to kind of bookend. And I always take a picture. I send it to my mom, who got it for me, obviously, on both occasions. And that shows, either, giddy up, let's get after it, or let's shut it down for a little bit and we'll be back the next time. So those are the two that I can most frequently think of when it comes to superstitions. There are plenty of other ones, but those are the two key ones for me.
Those are good. I really like your desk one.
This podcast is a proud member of the Teach Better Podcast Network. Better today, better tomorrow, and the podcast to get you there. You can find out more at teachbetter.com/podcast. Now let's get back to the episode.
All right. My question. Your best lesson ever.
All right. So my best lesson ever. Best unit is a lot easier than best lesson.
That wasn't my question.
I know. I have a classic that, a lot of us have done. And I've talked about the light bulb style one where, you throw random objects into a box and you say, kids, make something happen with it. So I won't use that one. One of my favorite lessons that I started doing is when parents started coming in for student-led conferences. The kids would itemize everything that we accomplished throughout the school year, and they would use a robotic or some sort of item to recreate an instructional path of something we learned about in the school year. So, for instance, traditionally we would use Ozobots. They would decorate the Ozobot, and then they would navigate an instructional path. I've had kids, talk through the long division method. I've had kids talk about the different class systems in Middle Ages. I've had kids talk about different parts of the light bulb as that robot travels through those different items, and then they have to be labeled. So visually, there's 25, 30 different possible unique events, no kids allowed to overlap, but it almost is a student-led conference without the kid or me having to do anything, that allows parents to recognize all of the great content we kind of covered in one fell swoop. Not too bad off the top of my head, but Ken, your best lesson, go for it.
Yeah, that was a good one. And you would think I'd be describing something where I do nothing and the students do everything. But I'm actually going to go with a lesson that is the complete opposite, where I was pretty much in charge of the entire experience. So in my first year teaching fifth grade, I was trying to get my students to be able to make their writing much more detailed. So really, explore all the senses and be very descriptive in their writing. And I don't remember if I came across it reading or if it was in our program, but somehow this idea of slow motion writing came up. So on the spot, I just thought of this idea. I had all the kids sitting in the front of the room. We were dissecting something, and I stood behind them, about 10 feet behind them. And I said, I want everyone to look at me. So they all turned around and looked at me. I said, we're about to write our story, and we're about to start our lesson. And I was holding a coffee thermos, and I wound up and I threw it across the room. It went over all of their heads and just smashed against the board. And I said, okay, that's what we're going to write about. And so I sat down, projected my computer, and typed the sentence, Mr. Ehrman threw a mug at the board. And I said, if you went home and told this story, no one would care. It's not interesting. It's not entertaining. And so we sat as a class and broke that sentence into, usually it ended up being 2 or 3 paragraphs, where it was slowing down, Mr. Ehrman wound up his arm and released the mug, throwing in similes, just making it as descriptive as we possibly could. And then, so that was what I would describe as my best lesson. I knew it was because almost every year I would get at least one new thermos, and students would typically write a note and say, I'm giving this to you so you can smash it against the board next year. Or like siblings would come back and ask me, "Are you going to do that lesson again?" I'd be like, "Yeah, you can't tell them. You cannot tell your younger brother or sister." As a follow up to that, I would then have the students think of a moment, and they would actually act it out and then write about it. So like pretending to like throw the game winning touchdown to the Super Bowl or something like that. And it really was a pivotal change in their writing because they really thought about describing every little ounce of what was happening in that action moment of the story.
So you're saying, this classic sequential how-to writing of, making a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Oh man, that's a little bit more descriptive. So I'll kind of use yours. Ken, at the end of the day, what is a trigger in your head that tells you that today was a good day?
That's a good question. Going deeper than I thought we were.
Bringing the heat late at night.
So I would say I'll take that question in two directions. From a relationship standpoint with the students, I think it's them saying bye, see you later, high five, something as they walk out the door when I would stand at the door for dismissal, or they'd come over to my desk to say goodbye before they left for the day. Just as simple as that, to know that I'm maintaining and allowing my relationship with each student to thrive. So that was a measure that I looked at. Or even the kid that says goodbye, in October, who I said it to every day and just kind of like, mumbles to you as they walk out the door, or the one that actually prompts it and says it to you before you say it to them for the first time, the second week, the second month, the third month, the last month of the school year. So I'll just stick with that. So from a relationship standpoint, that was a very easy, measurable outcome to know if my relationships were growing or staying positive with my students.
Can I ask a follow-up question real quick?
Sure.
And then I'll ask mine. Do you put any emphasis on your interactions with students you've had in the past, which when you taught fifth grade, you were the oldest grade in the building, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So that may not necessarily account. But, kids that you have, maybe not in your homeroom, as well as younger kids.
Mm-hmm.
What is kind of your insight of what those interactions are like, and how did you foster those as well?
So I would say siblings was always an easy one. As having the fifth graders, potentially having younger siblings in the building and them knowing who I was, saying hi to me, me trying to remember who they were and greeting them along with that. Former students coming back to visit, I think was a good measure. Another moment was at the end of the year, we would go to the middle school for orientation. And so there I would see, especially after being there for at least 3 years, a school full of kids that I taught, and maintaining those relationships and those interactions. Something that I've done every year since being in the classroom is I email every class that I had. I email every parent. So I would email them before their first day of middle school. Then when my kids were old enough, before their first day of high school, and then before their first day of senior year. And then again at their end of the senior year to congratulate them on graduating. And again, you get 4 or 5, maybe 6 or 7 responses from parents just saying thank you. Like, it's so nice that you think of them. Or sometimes it would be the kid responding, from the parents' email. So I don't know if that answers your question, but I think it did.
It just kind of leads into mine. I feel like, I don't know if you had this role, but when I talked to Anthony, my student teacher, quite a bit, I have acquired this role in this building of kind of being a little bit of a mayor. And so having a good day is not always self-contained to my class. Obviously, I want my kids to leave that day knowing that I care about them and that we accomplished something awesome. And it could be one small attribute of the day that was a win. That is fine enough in my classroom. Obviously, we want more than that. But, if we were only able to eke out one, win of the day within the classroom, that's a win. But I absolutely love having my fifth graders and sixth graders down the hallway and being able to meander and, contribute and pop into an ES classroom and pull some moments to help a kid that's, normally would be melting down and, force a relationship there. And then navigating myself down, I have opportunities frequently to go into the, first grade classroom and just teach a mini lesson on science. And so, not that that happens often, but when that does happen, and then you have the opportunity that kids respectfully get to share about it, I love that kids know about me long before they have the potential of having me. And it's not that, hey, I want them to say, "Oh, I want to have you when I'm older." It's just the idea that I was important enough to them in that moment that they acknowledged me beyond just siblings or, a classmate that's a sibling. So all of those type features, I feel like kind of contribute. Crushing lessons is awesome, but uh, I'll say early on in my career, I would reflect and say it was a great day if I felt like I crushed a lesson. And it took me a long time to realize that me being great at a lesson didn't always attribute to the kids learning as much as I thought. A lot of times when I think I crushed a lesson, I think that's the hard part about having a good day. When I feel like I did a good job, it's usually, me dependent. And what I've realized is I have to really answer that question by what my kids did to prove it. I know that's not really something that surprises you, or it's right up your alley, but
Yeah, yeah, no, for sure. All right, my next one. I'm gonna stay deep here with you.
okay.
A moment you saved a student.
Hmm. So I have a kid, LC, and I'll use LC as how I describe him. He was a classic scenario of heart of gold and got himself in trouble all of the time in existence. And and always for things that I could justify. You know, he was in fight or flight from the moment he, woke up every day. So no surprise that he was going to have the challenges that he did. He came to me in fourth grade in a position that I was dad legitimately. There's not many students that I would say, I've been called dad before by other students, but I was the male role model of good in his life. And I guess the short way to say the story is he is the student that I connected with in fourth grade that knew that I loved him without question of what he did. That went to our school principal and asked if he could create times to meet with me during the day when he went to fifth grade and then into sixth grade. And I met with that boy every single day of every single school year that he was there in fifth and sixth grade. And I'll say the hard part, and the reason why it hits me is um, he graduates sixth grade, and I get an email from grandma, who is his caretaker, that he had a seizure and that he's in the hospital. And I read that as I was actually boarding a plane to leave the country. And when I got back, luckily, the jump ahead, he is fine today, but um, I I didn't hear from him whatsoever. And I tried reaching out in seventh grade, and I reached out in eighth grade, and I asked around and didn't really hear much. He had apparently left the district and came back in the end of eighth grade. And last year, on the second to last day of school, I got a call to come up to the office that a student wanted to see me. And he came to school totally unrelated. He had no reason to be there other than just to see me. And that absolutely, you know, was all the feels and emotions of, you know, why we do this. You know, like that single kid right there. And again, maybe I'm dramatizing the impact that I have. I don't know. You know, he wasn't. Well, I'm just saying, like it was astonishing getting to hug him. You know, that hug was a 45-second hug of tears, and to hear he's on the honor roll, and as a eighth grader playing on the varsity football team because our school's small, and doing all of these great things and messing up still. Boy, oh boy, he's still messing up, but that's totally fine. Like, he has enough in the right direction, and in some capacity attributes it back to me. So I'm eternally grateful for LC. So that's my answer to that one.
Love it. Thank you for sharing. So mine is, I would argue, I guess it's really two kids, but it was one situation. I had these two girls that were best friends, absolutely best friends. Two great kids. They were great for each other. Great friendship. They were pretty much inseparable. And one morning, I noticed that they didn't sit together, and in morning work time, they could sit wherever they wanted. And then as they went to special, didn't stand next to each other in line. I just had a gut feeling something was off. And then we were doing an activity, and they purposely avoided each other. So I pulled one into the hallway, asked her what's going on. She said she was upset with the other one. Talked to the other one. They're upset with each other. I spent legitimately, so my kids would show up about 8:30. They special from 9 to 10, and we usually had lunch at 12:15. I can honestly tell you that day, I did not teach a single thing from 10 o'clock until 12:15. I was out in the hallway talking with these girls, talking with one, talking with the other, pulling them both into the art classroom. There was no art that day, forcing them to sit down, forcing them to talk to each other. And it was just pretty much just like a lack of perspective from both of them of understanding why the one did talk to the one way, the other one, the one student was going to be moving at the end of the summer and had kind of just recently found out. So it was just a big emotional mess. And like I said, I didn't teach anything. I just said, kids do this, kids do that, whether it was planned or not. And by the end of recess, they were good. They seemed fine. They told me they were fine. They were back to being themselves. And I had one of the moms come in the next day. She kind of like barged in my classroom in the morning. And she said, I cannot thank you enough for sacrificing everything that you had planned to make sure that they mended their relationship. And I know, like, even to this day, the one moved to Vermont and they still visit each other. And whether or not they stay friends forever doesn't really matter, but they needed each other. And it was a moment where I didn't even question not teaching that day. It didn't matter because I knew that those two would not learn anything from me that day. And frankly, wouldn't learn anything for probably the rest of the year because it was going to completely crush them because they were best friends. And, I would, as a coach, as a teacher, if I ever become a principal one day, I would never question a teacher making the same decision that I made in that moment because friendships are more important than anything, let alone the academic impact it would have on those two.
I love it. Yeah, and you've mentioned that before, and I think that that's where sometimes you can give your permission. You'll make up that instructional time, but I think the class probably picked on the vibes that something was up too. So even though those two wouldn't have learned, I think others would be curious, or whether it's gossipy or whatever the case may be. All right, I'm going to change the tone a little bit. I've got two quick ones for you. My favorite teachers, and I want you to answer both of them, even though they're totally unrelated, but they have to be quick answers. Got it? All right. My favorite teachers had a thing that they were known by. My first grade teacher, teddy bears. My fourth grade teacher, whales. I remember that distinctively. that they just loved whales and loved teddy bears. So first off, if you didn't have that one thing that was like we have a mutual friend of ours, Liz Martin, her thing is frogs. Kids just get her frogs because she loves frogs and purple. Those are her two things. So what would be those things? And then the other rapid fire one, well, I guess answer that one and we'll come to the next one.
Okay, so my thing that my kids would say about me, my snacks. My snack was a topic of conversation every day. Peeling an orange, I would eat avocados, and I would scoop it out of like half of the avocado. They were legitimately interested every day in the snack I was eating, and just the way I ate it. Like, I taught them how to peel a banana the right way, that you massage your citrus fruit before you peel it because the skin comes. It was a topic of conversation every day that I ate a snack, which was most days. So my snack eating.
All right. So I would say that mine is I've tried a few of them. So I did a daily dose of chocolate for a while, and I told kids that I could only do this daily dose of chocolate if you provided chocolate. So kids started bringing me in chocolate until I went to the doctors and realized that I needed to not do this one anymore. So chocolate was mine for a while, but I feel like I should infuse. My fourth grade teacher loved whales. I feel like I should force that onto my kids, but it is what it is. The second one is, I know you're a healthy guy, but unfortunately you forget your lunch one day. You can't run out to get something. What is a meal that you're hoping the cafeteria is serving? And what is a meal that you're dreading if that's the only thing the cafeteria is serving?
So what I would hope they're serving is something unhealthy, because
Well,
they
yeah.
usually taste it better, like a slice of pizza or like a chicken patty sandwich or something like that. Something that I would dread that they're serving would be some sort of like a meatloaf with mashed potatoes, because I love meatloaf and mashed potatoes, but I don't want it from the cafeteria.
Fair point. I don't know what it is about hot dogs from the cafeteria. They look so pale. I cannot say I love hot dogs. I absolutely can crush them. Um, so I cannot do cafeteria hot dogs. I will starve. On the flip side, they make a mean KFC famous bowl. Instant mashed potatoes doesn't matter. Chicken nuggets they're great. Canned corn, don't care. It is delicious. I cannot get over it. It is what I'm always hoping for when I'm going, to the cafeteria.
Sounds delicious.
I mean,
All right.
it's a great combo.
Funniest moment on the recess yard. So we're both elementary teachers. Sorry, secondary teachers, but we're going elementary here. Funniest moment on the recess yard.
So funniest moment, I would say, proudest moment may be different.
No, that wasn't the question.
No, I just get ready about it. Get ready about it. So this past year, I had suggested that we did a staff for sixth grade kickball game. Originally, we wanted to do like basketball. We were a little worried about like how you get a lot of people involved. So we did the staff versus kids kickball game, and so I was third at bat. And I absolutely demolished the ball. Absolutely demolished, to the point, I'm moonwalking, I'm, jogging, I'm yawning, all these different things I'm acting up. And so I end up, getting a home run. I'm thrilled. And I am so obnoxious about it. I've turned into the school heel, just driving these kids nuts because I won't see them as they go into seventh grade for a while. And so guess what happens at the very last at bat? We are down 1 run. There's a man on second with 2 outs, and we are up against the bell, and I come up and I absolutely destroy the ball, only to walk off with a teacher win. And the final moments of those sixth graders is that I beat them once again. So I think that is hilarious. I absolutely love it. But it plays into my persona. Right now, we're in a food donation situation, and I'm walking around to classrooms asking for donations for my class. Like, I love that competitive nature. So that is consistent. So the fact that I could, live up to my hype, I'm pretty thrilled by.
That sounded like a moment just to boast yourself as the
Oh my
world's
gosh.
greatest elementary kickball player. Not necessarily funniest, but
Oh, I thought it was
um,
that their final memory of elementary school is me beating them. I think it's hilarious.
yeah. So I don't know. I probably feel like I could think of a funnier one, but this is pretty good. So I was playing football with probably about, I don't know, like 12 or 15 fifth graders, and I am left-handed. And um, so I'm playing quarterback. I'm all-time quarterback, so I'm playing quarterback for both teams. And I throw the football, and I see my wedding ring trail behind the football, flipping and swirling in the air. And I see it land on the ground, and I run over, and I don't move because I know I'm in the vicinity of where it landed. And so I say to all the students, I lost my wedding ring. I'm not going to move because I don't want to lose sight of where, the search area is. First kid to find it gets ice cream tomorrow at lunch. And so there's like 20 or 30 fifth graders
I'm sure
crawling
Steph
on the
loved this.
ground. Yeah, crawling on the ground looking for the ring, which they found in probably like 5 or 6 minutes, and bought the kid ice cream the next day.
That's a win-win right there.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. All right, so the next one I have for you is you win the lottery. I know you love teaching. What is the one attribute of teaching that you are paying someone else to do so you can focus on all the other parts of teaching?
Grading.
That's my answer too, buddy. Oh my goodness.
Yep.
Hi.
Grading except for writing, because I want to give them feedback on writing, but grading everything else.
You're lying to yourself. You don't even want to give the feedback. No.
That's an easy one.
That is an easy one. I knew it was.
All right. I got a good one here. This will be my last question.
All right.
Did you go first? So would this be the last question? Do you have another good one?
I'll ask
do
you one
want
more good one.
Okay. All right. This will be my last question. Something you stopped doing that you should start doing again this year. Whether it's an instructional strategy, a project, a unit, a classroom culture thing, something you stopped doing that you did maybe in your first few years that you think would be beneficial to pick back up.
I think that again, you'll have to police me on this one. I think mine would be showcasing learners like I did before. There was a period of time when I moved into fourth grade that I was thrilled by everything they were doing. Whether it was, tweeting about it or, highlighting it very, very frequently. I find that, I'm in year 9 in this grade level. And with that being the case, I've seen a great spectrum of what fourth graders can do at this point that I find myself not searching for pretty good and only highlighting really great. And so if I could absorb early on, this was awesome out of a kid that I didn't expect it from, or this is awesome out of a kid I expected it from. It's still awesome, right? Like, I think that's one thing that I feel like I could reintroduce into my classroom, a new life, and the kids love being showcased, and I know that. I think we all know that, but I've just become so desensitized to what it is that I'm seeing so frequently that, it's just that's what you're supposed to do, or I've seen better. That's never a great thing to introduce into your classroom.
Yeah, I like that. And I was thinking the same word, desensitized. Just I think it's a natural progression of being in the same grade level for so long. If you move to second grade, you would have that novelty again of being so surprised of what a second grader is capable of. All right, so mine is I did it when I first taught second grade. I did it, I would say, probably at least my first 3 or 4 years teaching fifth grade. And I called it High Five Friday. And I would literally go to the cafeteria every Friday. Every student would have to meet with me one on one, and they would have to share something that they were proud of themselves for from that week. And there was no option to bypass. They had to meet with me. They had to share something. And the point was, one was to guarantee myself one conversation with every student every week. That was priority number one. Another part of it was I wanted them to understand that there's a difference between being, cocky and conceited and being proud of something that you accomplish. I wanted them to voice something that they were proud of. It could be as simple as, getting an A on the test. It could be making a friend. It could be sitting next to someone. It could be anything that they wanted. It could be something that they did at home, a sport that they're involved in, a club that they're involved in. But they had to share one thing that they were proud of. And I think I excused myself into allowing it to go because I found other ways to ensure my relationships with students and having conversations. But I lost the essence of that proud factor, and also the essence of I promise you get me one time a week, every week, for 1 minute. And so if I went back into the classroom tomorrow, that is absolutely something I would do and never let go of.
I love it. I love that. I'm going to hit you.
And they had to give me a high five.
Yeah, that's
Hence
the
the High Five Friday.
I'm going to hit you with a light one and then an easy one.
Okay.
Would you prefer to go see a kid doing something you're unfamiliar with outside of the school day, or something you are familiar with? For instance, we've gone and seen plenty of soccer matches. Do you enjoy going to see that more often than a piano recital or a dance recital, something that is less familiar to you?
I'm going to cop out and say both, but I'll give you a reason why. So our girls soccer team at our high school right now is very good. They were state champions 2 years ago. They were runner-ups this year. And two of my former students have been starters since freshman year, and they're now juniors. So they've been a part of this huge run. I enjoy going and emailing them afterwards or catching them in the hallway and giving them very specific feedback about what I enjoyed about the game and complimenting them. And as a soccer player who played for 18 years, I can be very specific with what I was impressed with. On the flip side, I love when I would go see students performing in plays at the middle school or at the high school and complimenting them in a different way. Like, I can't even imagine performing on a stage like that. The way you play the instrument, like, as a person who's never played the instrument, it's unfathomable for me to even imagine what you're doing and at the level you're doing it at. So almost like playing on both sides. Like, if it's something I did, I feel like I can give them a really specific piece of feedback and compliment. And if it's something I didn't do, I'm overly impressed because I can't even imagine doing it.
I mean, it's a solid answer. There is something about seeing kids in a team environment outside of the classroom that I love. Whether that's in a dance recital that they are doing things together, as a group, whether that's, as part of an orchestra where, they're part of a larger group. I much prefer seeing a situation like that than, one single piano player on the stage doing a solo, because most likely I'm familiar with their talents in that realm. That's more frequently shown on the soccer pitch or, the football field type scenario. If, you're all-time QB and all you're doing is running the entire time because you're faster than everyone else type scenario. So the last one's a heavy hitter. I hope you're okay with this. If you were to come honest with, the audience about something that was embarrassing or, a misstep in your career that you strive to not repeat going forward, what is that misstep and why did it impact you so much to keep your, motivation driving so much forward?
So I'll actually share two. I'll share two because one I want to mention now, but I have talked about it on the podcast, and it was the realization on like the third or fourth day of school when I taught three homerooms math that there was a student in my classroom that I had not personally interacted with in the first 3 days, and I promised myself that by the end of the first day of school, every student will have looked me in the eyes, and I will have looked them in the eyes and said hi to them. Good morning. How are you? How's your first day? Something. I will guarantee that they have a personal interaction with me before the day is over because it was a very empty feeling when I realized I hadn't personally interacted with that student. Second one I'll share is I had a student, an identified special ed student who um, was very capable of performing at a high level, and um, a lot of it was, for lack of a better term, like her academic struggles weren't the reason that she was performing low. It was more of like her doing the work that was expected or finding excuses to get out of her work, and yeah, and so kind of taking advantage at times when the student knew that they could, and I kind of allowed that to get the better of me, and um, allowed the student to have a lower grade than they should have. And not that I lowered their grade, but like as a special ed student, like they shouldn't fail a class. They shouldn't really have anything below a C. Like it's our job to make sure that they are able to succeed. And my principal called me out on it, and I just needed to be called out on it to remember that I can't let my frustrations get the best of me. I need to do what's best for every student. And even if I know they're taking advantage of things, I need to work beyond that and empower that student even more to overcome that feeling of being able to or the need to take advantage of things and get beyond that to help support them and get them past that.
It's a tough one, and I'll kind of use yours and then I'll add to it. I've been uh, accused of targeting kids before, with excessive criticism, like he just doesn't like me type attitudes, and um, I find that really troubling. When I witness something that, in my opinion, is unacceptable behavior, I really struggle. When I say unacceptable behavior, what I mean is you have the ability, you're choosing not to actively use that ability to be successful. I really, really struggle with that scenario. I struggled as a learning support teacher. I struggled as a regular ed teacher. And so I've had some kids that, have requested and granted the permission to leave my classroom. That is a big embarrassment of mine. The fact that it was better for them to leave my classroom. What's funny about, I've only had that happen once, but that student still came to my classroom math class and loved my class the rest of the year. But there was something about me being on top of that student for everything, because I felt like that was the structure. And they, at 9 years old, if I could embody or embed this repetition of expectation, that would change the trajectory of their life. And it was one of those things, and maybe that's, dramatic to say, but if they were going to be held to a standard that they hadn't been held before, that was productive, that was a good, worthwhile thing for me to do. And I got carried away with this at certain times, and that is an embarrassment. I ended up getting written up on this attribute as well, and that was a huge embarrassment. I've only been written up for that one time, but it was it was a demonstration of, everything I deserved. It actually came. I got crushed on a presentation evaluation the same year. And I can tell you, and I have no problem saying this now because I'm on the other side of it, it threw me into a depression, a legitimate depression where I stopped presenting and I questioned everything in my classroom. And I have questioned, my ability as a teacher ever since. And I'll say last year was a blessing to me. But it sticks around that. It is very, very accurate. And I think through this podcast, I've kind of led in that healing process of asking questions that I needed answers to. And a lot of times those were validation. And I guess the point that I'm trying to make is sometimes you have to teeter totter between, doing the right thing for kids. And like you're saying, letting the kids win, even if it's not foundationally in your best benefit. That's a really hard thing to grapple with. But recognizing that you're the adult, we've heard this plenty of times. You're the adult, they're the kid. They're allowed to have the mess ups. You are not allowed to have those, composure fails. And I'll say that, winning a bank award, a all thing considered, compared to most of the guests we get to talk to, coming out of a time where I questioned my ability to speak, to present, to offer value. I mean, we're 106 episodes into a podcast at this point. Hopefully I'm offering something good, but all of this has served as validation that we all needed. But this is the closest thing that we hear of celebrities saying, you may get 100 positive comments and one negative, and the only thing you hear about is that one negative. So my biggest encouragement is if you made a misstep, own up to it as quickly as you can. Recognize it's not a character flaw, right? Like that is not you. That is you choosing what hill you were dying on and what you thought was advocating for kids, that you were willing to stand by. I was willing to sit there and say, I still think that I'm doing the best thing for that kid. Even though it was harsh and it was rigid and it was unwavering, I still struggle with saying that I did wrong in that scenario. But at the end of the day, it's not my job. I am not parent. And so in fourth grade, I have some privileges because I don't have as much of that defiance. But just permission, if you're listening to this, that if you have these missteps, that it is not your entire identity. I was willing to throw my entire career away for these two specific incidents that I deserved every bit of. The presentation, I offered to present on moment's notice. I wasn't prepared. It was a packed room. It showed. And I took every one of those pieces of criticism as character flaws. I couldn't separate it from, I didn't prepare well. Ken and I did a presentation the next day and we got flawless reviews. Ken, I know you're a good presenter, but you weren't the only one presenting that day. So again, all of that perspective, not to, turn it back on everyone else, but, if you are struggling, because there are so many times we can take a personal, we can find personal attacks if we need them very easily in this career. But we've built a foundation in this podcast where we're hoping to validate the good and realizing people that are great are not that far from what you're doing every single day. We haven't heard a single thing in all these episodes that really separate, the teacher of the year from something you couldn't do. In every single episode, I haven't heard a single person that, was so above and beyond that we couldn't do it too as generic educators. So that's my little, whether it was coming clean, that's why I wanted to ask that question, or, with more truth. I finally am at that point where I feel like I can address it. I was very hesitant when we talked about it. I think it was the third episode. And I was like, do we have to really put this episode out? I'd be okay skipping it. I feel uncomfortable, but I'm in a different place now. That's for sure.
Yeah, you definitely are. So I actually have one more question to throw at you.
Okay.
Best last day memory.
I'm not a hugger. I always felt really uncomfortable about that. It's astonishing how consistently it's gone that we walk up on the last day of school and the kids demand a hug from me. That is something. And, if 2 or 3 boys or girls go ahead and they see that, someone broke down crying and gave a hug, Then they run back and, they give hugs. So my lasting memory is year after year, the hugs, because I find on that last day, it's acceptable as a man with elementary students. But that is not me provoking the hug. I'll put it that way.
Right. No, I get what you're saying. It was very similar for me. This wasn't going to be my answer, but I remember my first year. Same thing, especially as like a first year teacher. Like, is it okay? You kind of do like the side,
Yep.
arm around the shoulder, but
really lean away from them. Yeah.
Right. You spend 180 days together. They're a part of, you have a meaningful relationship, and, they want that closure. And so it's very appropriate. But I had a student who I know hugs me on the way out. She made it about halfway down the hallway, turned around, ran all the way back down the hallway just to give me another hug before she left again. But my favorite last day of school memory is, I've told you about this off air. We needed to clean the desks, and someone told me that Barbasol works great, Barbasol shaving cream. So I sprayed shaving cream on every kid's desk, and they just, spread it across the desk surface, and it just turned into a shaving cream fight for like 20 minutes. We were just all just belly laughing, just having so much fun together. It was just such a fun memory that I know I'll never forget. And I guarantee you, if I asked any one of those students who are now juniors, that almost every one of them would remember, because we were all just sharing in that moment together of laughter and closure of the last day of school, while some of the other classes were out for extra recess. And that's what we wanted to do together. It was a very cool moment.
All right. I got the last question. I'm putting you on the hot seat. Ken, how many years till you're back in the classroom?
Oh, man, what's weird is I was thinking about this today. To be perfectly honest, I can see myself in the next. So this is my third year coaching. And I think every year I've had new focuses, goals, projects that I'm working on. And, I've talked to you about this. I'm certified to be an administrator. I want to be an elementary principal. I am not actively pursuing it at all right now. It doesn't align with my family values. I want to spend time I want summers with my kids. That's just the flat out reason. There's nothing about the position of an elementary principal that intimidates me. I know I would have a lot to learn, and I would need a lot of support, but it's not the position that's preventing me from applying it to my family in a positive way. So I was thinking about that today, of really missing the classroom. Kids that I've taught are fading out of high school, which has been like a nice void fill for me. So I would say in year 6 of coaching, which would be
3 years from now,
right, 3 more years, I will need to pivot. I will need to pivot back into a building. There's so many aspects of coaching that I like. There's so many aspects of coaching that I feel as though I am serving my district in a positive way. The thing that I miss the most is being in a building. And so that's why I want to be an elementary principal as opposed to a curriculum leader, because the culture, the relationship part is so much more important to me in addition to quality instruction. And so I'll say in the next 3 years, I will need to be back into a building.
So I'll clarify this question because I want a firm answer.
Okay.
Go ahead. Be in principal. That's fine. I still feel like you want to be a classroom teacher again.
I honestly think my last year of education will be in the classroom.
Okay. We'll take it.
I will, barring any, personal reasons that it wouldn't work out. Yep. I would leave, if I become a principal one day, I would leave that and go back to the classroom before I sail off into the sunset of retirement. Very good. I guarantee you that happens.
Very good. Like I said, I know you're coming back to the classroom at some point. It may be sooner, it may be later, but I think it's too. We say it off air all the time. We talk with too many great educators. We spend so much time generating ideas that you witness me take and put into the classroom. You know, the minimal problems that my position has, a lot of responsibility, minimal problems. Someone else gets to bail me out. So, but I think it's too much aligned with your purpose and focus. And I think that's where, going, as they say, the dark side, I see you coming back to the classroom sooner than you want to admit, but I think that would be good for all kids.
Well, thank you. So this was fun.
Yeah.
I'm glad we did this.
Absolutely.
I think this was insightful. I think we dove deep into questions that will be beneficial for some here, and also just had some fun.
Honestly.
So why don't you
I mean, I would love if we, took some of these questions and put it on our social media when this comes out and see what people answer as their own responses. I think that would be fun to compare with our own. So yeah,
That's a good idea. All right. Why don't you close down shop here?
As we power down this episode, I mean, I hope we left you somewhat powered up. Who knows? All we know is that Ken's committed to come back to the classroom, next year. I think I heard something like that. Now, be well. It's a tough time right now. You're getting through it the best you can. But, keep on driving forward, and we will talk to you next week. See you then.
Thank you so much for listening to this podcast. If you haven't already, please subscribe on whichever platform you're listening to or watching us on YouTube. Each week, we get to talk to amazing educators who are making a positive impact on the lives of students, their colleagues, administrators, and education as a whole. It's been such a privilege every week to be able to talk to these incredible individuals, learn from them, grow with them, and better myself and all of education through these conversations. If you haven't already, please consider sharing this with a colleague, someone who can benefit and be powered up from the experience of listening to these incredible conversations. Because of Powered Up, we are powering education by empowering you.